Hello, everyone. This is Belinda Carr. Welcome back to the Movers and Breakers podcast, where we dive into the world of construction and explore the stories of people and companies who are shaping the future of our industry. From the latest innovations to the challenges and triumphs of everyday professionals, we bring you the inside scoop of what's happening in construction. Today, I'm speaking with Audree Grubesic, founder and CEO of Offsite Dirt and Modular Sure Site. Thanks for joining us, Audree.
Thank you for allowing me to be here, you rock star in the industry. I'm so proud of you and proud of where you have really engaged all of us in construction. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Audrey. I mean, I've got people to look up to like yourself, so I'm just following in your footsteps.
You're so sweet. Thank
Oh,
you.
so Offsite Dirt is a media and event company that captures the latest developments in offsite modular construction. You started it, I think, about 4 years ago, but you have built such an incredible encyclopedia, almost a database of offsite modular construction knowledge. How did you start this business? How did you get into it? What drove this passion for modular construction?
Well, I started Modular Sure Site about 6 years ago, actually next month. And when I got into the industry, actually a couple of years before that, I was in luxury custom home building in sales and also in marketing. And I really loved just building. And I loved the ownership that people had to their homes. I loved the engagement. And I always wanted to become my own builder. So in 2017, I started Modular Sure Site, and I was doing general contracting work with retailers that were selling modular homes. That's when I lived in Denver, Colorado. I worked with a wonderful general contracting group, and we set out and were able to contract 4 projects within 1 year. I made every mistake that you possibly could make.
Best way to learn.
Best way to learn. I met 4 different manufacturers. I had several different retailers, and we really started digging into offsite solutions. So each one of these were modular homes. And at that time, when I went out only 6 years ago, there weren't a lot of resources for me to find information. If you lived on the East Coast and the West Coast, a lot of them were building homes, like Blue Homes was really big. Champion homes were big, but I really didn't understand it. So I thought, kind of like you, how do we engage people? I've always been in media. I have a degree from Illinois State in mass communication, so I started using my tools and knew that if I was building one, I would get the experience. But 2, if I'm having conversations with the leaders in the industry, I can only gain more research, more knowledge, and really not make the same mistakes that everybody else is making. Maybe just find one more step closer to being successful on a project. So getting into Offsite Dirt 4 years ago, I created a lot of relationships with people at their modular factories. I started learning about products and supply and demand, and then also learning about the pre-construction team and then going to events. And so it just was this enterprise of conversation that kind of led to our platform.
Wow, that's a lot that's happened in the last 4 to 5 years. It's probably been a really busy time for you.
It has been really busy, kind of like you. You learn as you grow and you grow as you learn. And fortunately for us, now we've got 7 contributing, basically interviewers on Offsite Dirt from Philadelphia to Chicago to Santa Fe. Canada, we're just really starting to grow. And the wonderful thing about the platform is, yes, we have probably about 250 events on there from all-inclusive types of construction to high performance, building science. We talk to people about panels. We talk to people about modular volumetric. And it's just been this growing interest. So for me, I just feel completely fortunate. I've really gained some amazing connections through LinkedIn, and I follow people like you too. I think that we're all here together to build better.
Yeah, exactly. Build better, push the industry forward, contribute in any way we can. Because, like you said, wouldn't it be a shame if 100 other people made the same mistakes you did? Like, how is that really benefiting us or benefiting the construction industry as a whole? Why not just share those mistakes so that others can avoid them?
Exactly. And I think that's the greater mindset that we're starting to see in the industry. Offsite solutions has been around for 100 years, but it's getting more recognition over the last couple of years with COVID. We're starting to see not as many people, joining the work site. And so we have to come up with more solutions. We have to find more ways of building. And I have two really interesting stats that I was able to formalize today. So the World Economic Focus said by 2025, 1.6 billion people will be affected by global housing shortage. Insane. Wow. So we need homes. We already know that, right? And how can we mass produce them, and how can we build them more sustainable and in a greater process? The other stat was by 2050, climate change could cost the global economy $23 trillion if we don't start changing and rising up to better quality and lower emissions and greenhouse effects. And most, 30 to 40% come from our homes.
Yeah, that's exactly what I tell people. Everyone talks about the housing shortage. I'm like, it's not the only part of the equation that we have to address. We can't just keep building the same way we're building, because it's going to cause other issues. Like in Texas, for example, whenever we have a snowstorm or something, it just shows us how fragile our energy grid is. We're just teetering on the very edge, just maxing everything out. And anytime there's a heat wave or a snowstorm or something and everyone cranks up their thermostats, that's it. The energy grid fails because our homes are not built well. We can't just produce more homes. We have to produce better built homes to reduce our reliance on the grid.
Right. And I think you do I think the thing that is so special about your program in particular is that we need to think about sustainability. We need to think about what is high performance. Why are we using building science? Why are we using heat pumps in our house? Why are we thinking about solar grids? These things are all coming up because we have to make a big shift in the next 6 years. Yeah. We have to start conserving and helping our planet so that it can sustain itself.
Yep. It's such a powerful, it's overwhelming to think about it, because construction and homes, like you said, it takes up such a big part of the global economy, such a huge part of energy consumption too. And it can feel at times that, can we really solve this problem? Are we really making a difference? But I guess I just try to do my best. That's all we really can do. It's better than doing nothing. Even if we make a tiny little, like a small fraction of a % difference in helping the industry better, or helping reduce our emissions, I think that's all that we really can do. And maybe that little percentage difference that each of us makes can snowball into a larger, more impactful change in our construction industry.
Agreed. Yeah. And I think that's why, we're starting to look at other solutions. We're trying to look at offsite solutions. For many of the people that may be listening, offsite really does mean it's built in a factory or a manufacturing plant, and then it's brought on site and it's assembled. So there are so many great benefits to that, because 40% of our landfill is filled with construction materials. So if we're building our buildings inside manufacturing plants, we're using most of the materials for that building. We don't have big, huge, dumpsters out on site filling with all this wasted material. I think that's one of the greatest gifts about offsite solutions. And, let's face it, we're only about 6% of the construction industry right now. But as we continue to gain popularity and we continue to gain these solutions and productivity and assembly focus, we're starting to see this big change. Yeah. And then we're also getting smarter about manufacturing and using lean processes and using these tools, because we're starting to study that we have to be this way.
Yeah. I had Ken Semler on my podcast I think last year, and he builds he runs a company called Impressa Homes, and he designs modular homes. You've probably spoken to him. And he said modular construction was the red-headed stepchild of the construction industry. I thought that was a very funny term. So,
I have to say something really nice about Ken, in this conversation, because when I started in this particular form of construction 6 years ago, Ken was actually one of the first gentlemen that talked to me about construction and how it worked and why he was so enthusiastic about it. And he's been doing it for 30 years. Oh. He's been such a great advocate. He has, an amazing magazine. And he really believes in the industry. I mean, he is an amazing speaker and he has such great knowledge and expansiveness. And I continue to praise him for wanting to lead this really difficult race.
Absolutely. Yeah. And likewise, every time I speak to him, I feel like I learn something new from him. He's a wealth of information. So I have to ask you, you kind of started Offsite Dirt right before COVID hit in 2019 or so. That it feels like that was a really pivotal time for the modular construction industry, with all the chaos that ensued after 2020 with supply chain shortages, labor shortages. It was all building up. It's not like suddenly we turned on a switch. It was building up. We saw signs of it, but that probably had a really positive effect on your media, on your company. I bet there was a huge demand for more information on how we can build our homes and build on commercial buildings off-site.
Absolutely. And you know what was so crazy about the Belinda? I was interested in it. I wanted to find out a solution of building a better way, using less waste, having something more energy efficient. So I was really interested in it. And then when I was having conversations with more people and doing these vlogs with individuals, everybody started talking about it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't feel so alone. I don't feel like I'm the only one out there reaching for, information. And it's funny because I was just talking to a lady this morning she actually used to work at CNN, and she is now working as a media director for a software company. And she was just saying, Audrey, the thing that's so difficult is I can't find a lot of information about our industry. And so then I started flushing her with a whole bunch of research, right, from Dodge Data and McKinsey report. And some of these and Enroll has a big report about modular and sustainable construction. And so now the conversation's getting bigger and better, and 3D printing and all these unique solutions that we find overseas that are now finally making our way to the U.S.
Absolutely.
And we're finding more interest, right?
Exactly. Or even solutions from other industries. That's
Correct.
where I get really fascinated when that happens. Like, for example, in 3D printing, solutions from the material sciences industries, when that comes into construction, that is truly special to me, because then it's like they're finally opening up and realizing, hey, we can learn things from the automation industry, from infrastructure, from all these other industries, and that can help us grow.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing, we're starting to look at robotics, right? The robotics were in making cars and making phones and doing all these things. And now we're getting smarter. How can we assemble our homes, our wall panel systems? How can we integrate this? So that technology is talking with other technologies. So we're just seeing this great expansiveness, and it's exciting. It's an exciting time to be in this industry. It's an exciting time to have these conversations and seeing proven methods. There are a tremendous amount of factories out there that are having great success. We just don't get to tell their stories all the time because they're so busy. They're just like, they can't take any orders. They can't take any interviews. They're working their systems. They're taking care of their employees. I think that's the other great thing. We're seeing company culture be a priority in running these factories. So we're starting to see systems in place that are actually effectively working.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by company policies and culture? What do you
Well, I
referring
think
to?
the thing, I've talked to so many modular factories. I've talked to so many different types of manufacturers. And the one thing that I'm finding is the ones that actually take care of their employees, train them, teach them, support them, do videos with them, are the ones that are having the most productivity out of their factories. And so I think these are the types of things that we need to start discussing because we are shifting and changing.
Yeah.
I just posted on LinkedIn about Amyris. So Amyris, I believe that's how you pronounce the company, is a $750 million factory that is coming to Georgia. Right.
Oh.
So we look at that and we think, how are they going to pull that off? But then I think, well, if they have this effective system of taking care of the people and hiring well-trained and supportive people, we can really keep dynamically building and making things better. And so that's what really also engages me. I love talking to factory owners and seeing how they talk to their C-suite management. I love talking to the factories that I get to talk to a supervisor. how they're getting supported, what are they seeing in the industry. So that's the thing that's going to be involving the workforce. The workforce has always been an evolving, eclectic with building and manufacturing and on-site and off-site construction, but we're starting to see this evolution since COVID and people not being able to work at a factory. How does this all come together, and how do we support each other to keep growing and to keep building more?
Yeah, more and better. So back in 2017, 2018, my husband and I started watching this TV show called Grand Designs. Okay. And it's a TV show based in the UK, and they show these one-off homes that are built in a different way. Either they're designed differently, built differently, there's something unique about them. And a lot of those homes were built in factories in Eastern Europe and then shipped to the UK or France, mainly in the UK. And it was fascinating. Then they actually traveled to Eastern Europe and showcased how they were built over there. And it was crazy how advanced they were. They had robot arms going on. They had an assembly line. They had the modular construction process figured out like 10 years ago. And so for this company that you just mentioned, Admaris, are they a European company that's setting up base in the US?
Yes, from what I understand, they're from Finland, and I've reached out to the CEO. I'm really hoping that we can connect. I love finding these positive stories of influence, and I think when I see something of that size, of that nature, to be able to take on a factory that is so enormous, like just to be able to finance it.
Yeah.
It just boggles my mind. It just makes me excited to see how it's all going to perform. And I think the other thing that's really interesting is that first we started talking about offsite construction or manufacturing in a plant, but now the conversation, like you and I were talking about, is how do we deliver pre-construction? How are we using BIM? How are we using software? How are we using all these collective pieces to be more effective? And what kind of sustainable materials are we starting to think about?
Lots of things to consider. It's not a simple process, but the fact that a company like this, $750 million, is setting up base in Georgia means that clearly there's a demand for it. There's excitement for it. There's a demand for it, and there are proven solutions out there. It's not in guinea pig phase experimental stage anymore.
It's not. And you and I both know, I mean, even when we're looking at this whole dynamic, then we're also talking about supply chain, distribution, materials. Yeah. So there's a lot of equations to construction. This isn't an easy, like one size fits all. We have to know our audience. We have to know our build product. We have to know the developers and builders that want to get involved. That's the other reason why at the time of COVID, I shifted from building into consulting, because I started seeing that my resources were better fit for building pre-construction teams and explaining the process, and then also being the liaison from the developer builder to the factory and actually knowing what kind of questions to ask the factory, because nobody really leads you into this. This is kind of like you need to figure it out on your own. So it is evolving. It is changing. We are seeing software companies that are sustaining this and helping developers and builders. And so I think it's evolving, but again, it's still trying to get out there. It's still trying to understand it. And so I think there's more and more resources that are coming about because we are having the conversation and we're including everyone. It's not, I'm going to do this and you're going to do that. It's how can we help each other collaborate?
So the consulting company that you just mentioned, is that Modular Sure Site?
That is. So I went from building homes. And then the other cool thing about the building homes thing that I learned was how efficient our process was becoming on site. We kept losing months on our build schedule. And the last project that we did, it was in Denver. I don't know for anybody that has worked with the Denver building department out there, but it's super busy. It's such a big city. It took us about 6 months to get that building permit. It was a one-box modular. It was about 800 square feet. It took us 3 hours to set it on the property and then attach it to the foundation, go through all of the regular, inspections. But that entire process after it was connected to the foundation took us 28 working days. You cannot build a house in that short of time and get it completely a certificate of occupancy for it. So that's where I was completely sold on modular, and we saved the client 35% in his budget.
Oh my gosh, wow. And how long did it take to
Huge.
construct the
So
building
the
offsite?
construction of the building itself in the factory took 3 weeks.
Oh my
3 weeks,
gosh.
right? So we start looking at these efficiencies. So now we kind of move into multifamily. That's kind of where my business has grown in consulting with more multifamily developers, because they have to get their projects done. And with the bank delays and with construction contractors and things like that, a project that used to take 12 months is now taking 36 months. So
Oh my
everybody's trying
gosh.
to figure out, how do we get this done faster? What's the ease and process of that? So we start educating, we start doing our research, and we start looking at multifamily. And why multifamily is growing in the modular industry is because we can build an entire building, 42 unit, 72 unit, in like 2 or 3 months in the factory. And then it comes to site as modules or Legos, as I like to explain it. And they can connect them in a week to 3 weeks, depending on the schedule and the size of the project. And then you're really pretty much only 20% of the construction part of that is completed on site and your project's done.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
there's huge efficiencies, and that's
Yes.
why it's taking over the industries in small scales, right? We still are perfecting the process. I'm not saying it's for everyone, but I am seeing great improvements.
Can we dive into the specifics of Modular Sure Site, your consulting business? What sort of advice do you provide to owners looking to build multifamily units or maybe even hotels? Because that's also a perfect application for offsite modular construction.
So a lot of people that may not, know a lot about this industry is that everything is in the pre-construction state. When we are talking about building a team, we really have to talk about the project size. Then we have to talk about what type of building are we looking at. And we need to discover what is the greatest offsite solution for it. Is it a panelized system? Is it volumetric modular? If it's modular, we need to make sure we have a modular architect. We have to have an architect of record. And then we also have to communicate with the factory that is doing shop drawings. So if you're thinking about a project like that, really should seek out a modular architect, right? And there's so many great ones out there. We got Arteca Designs, we got CSHQA, we have Base 4. There are so many architects that have changed the way that they are communicating through drawing and design, because they know offsite is becoming a more prevalent type of construction solution.
So, do you have these connections on a state by state basis?
Yes. So
Okay.
that's what's so interesting. The industry is so big, but it's yet so small.
So,
So it just depends on where they're located. There's a lot of the developers that I was working with were in Colorado, because I was based there. In Texas, there's just growing areas. And so the other suggestion, if you are looking at an offsite solution, is talk to the factory, visit the factory, find out every single detail about their process so you're aware of it in every capacity, from design to execution through the contract payments. Many people may not know this either. The entire building is actually all paid for before it leaves the factory. So
oh, wow.
you're not paying it in monthly deposits. You're paying it in a very large sum before it leaves the factory. And that's makes sense, right? You have a building that's already being built. All the materials are there. Everything's constructed. So, of course, you have to pay for that building before it leaves the factory.
But that surprises some people, I assume.
It does surprise people, because it's not a normal way that we do business. When you do a regular or a traditional construction project, you have a regular monthly draw schedule. And every month, this amount comes out, and you're not paying for 80% of the building up front. You are paying it in installments. So that's one big solution. And I think the other thing is really understand your build schedule and who is responsible for what actions in the process of building a modular project. What does the general contractor do? What is their role? What does the factory do? Where does their job start and where does it finish? Who handles the warranty on the building? Who handles the architectural design and the drawings? And who submits all of that to the state? So there's just a lot of questions. So when you're Yeah, so when you're thinking about it, it's just really smart to do your due diligence. Go to Offsite Dirt. There's a lot of great resources. You have a lot of great resources on your website and YouTube channel as well. Get yourself familiar as possible. Just do your research.
I love to dive into Offsite Dirt now. That was a great segue. I'm glad you mentioned it. I really admire how you have created a team of people that can create this content for you, and that's something I struggle with. I'm learning something new every day. Creating a condensed version of the content that I learn and then putting it out there is a huge it's a lot of work. And right now I'm still a one person business trying to do all of it. And I hope to get to the point that where you have a team of people who are just as motivated as you about offsite modular construction that's creating this really valuable content. Was it difficult building that sort of team? How did you find the right people?
I It's so crazy because I feel like they came into my life for a reason. It was like one person knew another person who knew another person who knew another person. And each one of these individuals, I think, are exceptional experts in in their lane. I think they have such great information and contribution, and they're proving their methods, right? So many of them are builders, many of them are on construction teams. So they walk the walk and they talk the talk, and it's just been a blessing. Honestly, I haven't, and they're so engaging, and each one of them has wanted to do something like this, but they didn't have the time to create everything around it, kind of like what you're
Yeah, the
talking about,
backbone of it.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, and it's a full-time job. I mean, it's insane how much time it takes. But the collaboration and having these people around me and their network around all of us,
It's
I just
invaluable.
feel very grateful and very blessed.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, is there one particular project that really stands out to you and like it holds a special place in your heart, maybe that you had this client approached you with a really difficult site or other constraints, and modular construction was the perfect fit for that particular project? And is there a project that comes to mind that you consulted on?
Yes, I have this amazing project that we're working in Nevada, and it was 17 buildings. Amazing developer. They were a traditional developer, phenomenal team, phenomenal. And they really wanted to do modular construction. So it was difficult because I'm training and talking to a whole team of people that haven't done it. And so we really had to build this trust, which we did, which was wonderful. And for their investor, they really needed to come up with 12 factories as a list to make sure that we're exploring and talking to all these factories to find out who is going to be the greatest solution. So the unfortunate thing about this is we came into the last year, this recent year, waiting for funding. And because interest rates are so high and looking at their profitability and their margins, they can't build a project.
Oh no.
So we spent a whole year in planning, putting our incredible team together. I'm talking a major, amazing architecture, amazing structural, amazing general contractors. We spent months and months interviewing people, putting this team together, and we're not building it now. So my hope is that we will get there. But it was really fascinating how excited and interested the team was, and how they really thought about things methodically. We really were asking factories, hey, what's your time lengths? What type of product can you build? Is it wood frame? Is it steel frame? What is the most efficient way can we do this roof line? And they were asking the questions, which I don't think a lot of people think through those things. It's like you give it to your architect, the architect just takes it, and then the project starts. But this is really more about collaborative.
But that's a sign that you trained them properly.
I think so. Luckily enough, I think that's the thing that may be missing, or I think the successful, even traditional companies that are out there, Belinda, it's all about being transparent and communicative.
Absolutely.
So unfortunately, we didn't get it. I'm hoping that maybe in the next year, funding will change and lending will change, but
Are they looking at other
working with the team.
solutions, like more
They have
traditional?
been. They've been looking at equity partners. They've been kind of trying to reposition. It's just, you have this one way of how it's going to work with these investors. And then unfortunately, when the numbers don't meet because your interest rates are so high, you can't walk into that type of, destruction. You just can't walk into that. And I get it. I mean, everything is based on profitability when when you're spending millions of dollars. And that's the unfortunate thing. I wish we would have went into maybe a LIHTC program or an affordable housing program, or maybe we could have had opportunities to work with the state and try to file some of those things. But again, all of these things takes years to put
Yeah.
together.
Wow. And I hope that this project does get built. I'm going to keep an eye on your LinkedIn page for updates on
Thank
that
you.
project. You have shared such incredible advice on this podcast so far during this conversation, and you have basically walked us through all the pre-construction process for offsite modular construction. And I would encourage people to visit your Offsite Dirt website and even your Modular Sure Site website to learn more about this, because it's an exciting industry to be in, and there's so much demand for offsite right now, and I don't see it slowing down anytime in the near future. But to conclude our podcast, I would like to ask you if you have any advice for or tips for running, starting, or growing a business, or two businesses like you have. It can be all consuming, it can be draining, but you have managed to successfully run two of them. What do you have any tips or advice for people looking to do the same?
I think that passion is a big one. I think passion is what drives us all to get up in the morning. I have a regular meditation practice I use in the morning and the evening. I think it gives
I
me
need that.
clarity. And yeah, and it really helps me to be more open-minded, more collaborative. I think that we can't possibly know everything in construction, and those that are afraid because they don't know enough, just keep dipping your toe in, because I was one of those same individuals. My whole background is sales and marketing. I actually started in TV in Chicago right when I got out of college. I never knew I was going to be in building or construction or even lead these conversations, but I was so open to learning, so opening to listening. And if you are thinking about it, check them out on LinkedIn, see if you can do a Zoom with them. I think there's a lot of people these days that are looking to help others grow. And it's just taking the first step, but you got to just do it and believe in yourself, right? Because little change like you and I are talking about, it's just a little bit of change. I don't have this massive website that is doing all these amazing things. I've just started to connect with people that are like-minded, that want to see things grow. And we need construction and we need buildings. I mean, if we need 1.6 billion homes by 2025, global housing shortage is real. We have real problems ahead of us and real problems with our environment. We need as much help as we can get.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge on the podcast, Audrey. I hope to have you back soon, because I'm sure that we can dive into a completely different set of topics. And you're very knowledgeable about this industry, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
I am so pleasantly happy and just so engaged to be on your podcast, Belinda. You make us all so proud, and thank you for being a leader to take the advantage of learning more, sharing more, and allowing us to learn more. So thank you.
Thank you, Audrey.